Yeah, man, I'm excited. That is a hell of a collection back. Scary and already.
There's a lot, yeah. It's exciting, but it's overwhelming, I'm sure.
I dig it. It probably makes like watching movies feel like, church like. Just like it's sacred. I'm gonna take it out of its case. I'm gonna pop it in, get to enjoy it.
The hard part is the 48 minutes spent before the movie trying to figure out which one to watch.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's what happens when you have 48,000 of them. It's just like,
Yeah.
which one tonight? Cool.
Hello there, and welcome back to The Disconnected. I am here with Josh Ruben, who is the star of the recent A Wounded Fawn that just dropped on Shudder, but has all kinds of other stuff under his belt. We're going to talk about as many of them as we possibly can. Josh, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, man.
So first of all, how's this whole voluntary podcast tour that you're on? You should be coming to the end of it soon, right?
I have a full week of like 4 to 5 a day coming up. But the first leg was amazing. I mean, everybody's asked such insightful, specific questions, and there hasn't been that much overlap, which is kind of crazy.
Nice.
So I'm eager to see what's in store for this coming week. It's also kind of been an amazing character study, just of the different swath of interviews and types of questions, but types of people. And so
Right.
I'm definitely clocking just like, wow, the personalities across the spectrum of this industry, so to speak, is really, really fascinating. Just as like a comedian observationist, I'm just kind of like, wow, yeah, they're a really great way to meet people. You know what I mean? Just kind of see
That's
like,
true.
wow, it's yeah. While I'm sitting at home in my pajamas writing shit, it's like, oh, it feels like I'm out meeting people, but I'm really just here. And what a swath of personalities I've met. It's been pretty cool.
And it's the cool thing about stuff like this is it makes the world feel that much smaller, because some of these people would never have the opportunity to make acquaintances like this, and it's nice to be able to share your viewpoint across this spectrum, because there's a lot out there.
And I feel like it's the lines are blurred. It seems to become negligible at some point, where it's like, talk to the LA Times, there's not everybody reads,
Right.
or you talk to an obscure publication not everyone might listen to, but there's a coalescence of Venn diagram kind of element to it, where it's like it's at some point people are going to end up hearing one over the other, or could end up listening to that obscure show more than say they would have heard or read about it on a newspaper they don't subscribe to or otherwise.
Exactly.
Exactly. So it's cool.
So to get into the technical stuff, you've directed a few things of your own, one of which that I truly loved is Werewolves Within. Here is a copy of that. How is it giving up the director's chair and going into something with somebody like Travis Stevens for this?
It was great because as a filmmaker, going back to acting, I mean, I started as an actor. I get to then archive how a filmmaker like Travis, or really any director, talks to their crew or talks to their actors, or orchestrates and conducts. I think that's why directors love talking to other directors, is because what we do is so absolutely insane and very, very difficult. And it requires such a privileged set of skills amassed over the years, if you're lucky enough to be able to amass those skills over the years without anybody kind of recognizing it. So for me, it was great. It's like I sort of get to take a seat back and exercise a different part of my toolbox. But I also get to learn from others and adopt what sort of I'd like to bring on to the next project as a filmmaker.
Exactly. And this role seemed to indicate that there was probably a lot of trust between you and Travis, the way that you executed everything in this. It's sort of an odd character study, obviously, but beyond all of that, there's nuance in your performance. And without Travis, I'm sure, directing very specific things, it wouldn't exist the way that it does on screen, even though that you have, obviously, in a lot of what you do, your own specific nuances. So the blending of those two, did you feel any sort of, built trust on this set?
That's an awesome question. Like I was saying before, there's not much overlap with the questions on my like indie press tour. There was an inherent trust there. I mean, he's a seasoned filmmaker and
Right.
producer, so I knew that I'd kind of be taken care of. Um, I'm pretty good at self-directing, and I really, really appreciate, and the trust was especially learned when I saw the careful steps Travis was taking in advance of us, getting a set and the cameras rolling, questions that he would ask us about our characters and trying to sort of sew in the tone or exhibit the tone, articulate the tone, so that when we did get there, we'd not just whatever learn their lines and various bits of character work, but knowing how we were going to fit into the story. So yeah, that definitely existed and was super valuable and was such an excellent part of the process. What you really want in a filmmaker, which Travis did, is to make sure that he catches you so that you're acting within the confines of the tableau that he's kind of painting, right? And
Right.
that when you see the thing at Tribeca for the first time that I did, you go, oh, that's why he had me do that, or why that was filmed a certain way. The nightmare scenario for me, regardless of how good you are, how great a performance you kind of deliver, is then that the technical piece of it won't get supplemented or won't be as supported. But in this case, it absolutely was, which was such a joy to see how it all came together.
Speaking of that, what did you feel the first time you watched it? Other than, obviously the pride of your performance, but do you feel like the story was effective for you watching it for the first time?
The story was immensely effective. The film stock was so that was the most exciting part to me, beyond how the visuals and how Val's score, he's our brilliant composer, how that kind of translated. The very first time, to be totally honest, I turned to my wife and I was like, I'm dog shit, right? This is terrible. Like the performance, I wouldn't cast me.
Right.
And she was like, you're crazy. That's just how I am when I see myself for the first time, especially, or see performances. I see all the kind of imperfections. Take with that what you will. But yeah, I was overwhelmingly, especially with each version of the film that I saw, because Tribeca was one sort of sound design and color pass, and Fantastic Fest, especially at that theater at the Alamo. It's just that sound system is crazy. It looked even better. It sounded incredible. That's the one where it sort of like clicked in, like, oh shit, no, this is a wholly visionary, very different kind of film. I think it's going to have a nice life.
Watching this, I was very, very impressed with the fact that it was shot on film. It was shot in film in a way that was done to look like the 70s and have that thematic feel. And watching with my wife, she looked at me and said, why does this look so different than some of the other newer movies that we watched? And I had to explain the technical side of her. That alone, that educational side, are you getting this this feeling that maybe some other people might view this and say, hey, maybe I'm a little inspired and I'll shoot my next feature on film?
I think I'm seeing quite a bit of that movement. Like, I know Travis was inspired by Joe Bagos's Bliss in particular. And now you're seeing, I didn't even realize that Christmas Bloody Christmas, his next film, or his most recent film, is also on 16 and is about essentially Terminator Santa Claus. So I'm super excited to see that, just because, there's something about that aesthetic that's so kind of transportive and nostalgic for all of us film lovers. But I'm curious how, for the, say, not cinephiles or people who wouldn't quite calculate that, how they feel about the aesthetic, if they just are enjoying the ride or whatnot. But I'd like to think that, that film will continue to have a life. And Travis specifically set out to do it and executed it because it was Joe, I believe, who broke the myth that it was some impossible thing to do a movie on film. It's not impossible, and it's not cost prohibitive. You just have to calculate your number of film canisters, film cartridges to shoot, budget accordingly. And that's what we did.
What about yourself? Do you see yourself shooting on film anytime soon?
I'm definitely more curious about it, for sure. I like what it does to us actors and to the production crew. It kind of charges everyone to do it right the first take, because every foot of film is X amount of dollars, whatever. In a different kind of sense that, time is money when you're shooting digitally. But yeah, I don't know for sure. I think I would if if the film required it, if it felt like that would assist the film in some way. In an instance like this, it made total sense because it's a giallo kind of homage. It's a Sam Raimi homage in a way. But I'm definitely, my interest is piqued for sure.
Speaking of giallo, any certain giallo films that while shooting this you were hearkening back to for yourself personally that you seem to appreciate from viewing in past years?
I am such a newcomer to that whole subset of horror films, to the Italian filmography, to Argento and what's it, Deodato and Fulci and all them.
Yeah.
I think I remember the one that stuck with me as a kid, and I'm sure I've seen more, was Phenomena, originally Creepers with Jennifer Connelly. I think that one is phenomenal. Just the fact that it gets away with so much and there's such a scope to it really stuck with me. There were images that, will stay with you forever, as with most of those films, but there wasn't one specifically I was thinking of. I maybe because it's just not within I'm more of like a, Batman Returns and Weekend at Bernie's kid, than I am a Italian horror cinemaphile. But now I'm more, I think, dug in and excited about going back and watching and appreciating them in the way that, I don't know, Travis might go into the Severin Films vault and get it's all stoked on.
Yeah, Travis's episode on that was pretty great. And speaking of Travis, he also directed Jacob's Wife, which also had your co-star Sarah Lind in it. And how was it working with her? Because without the two leads having this great chemistry, this really would not have worked the way that it did.
Someone said the other day, they were like, I really loved that they didn't have chemistry, talking about the characters, which is a testament to how great our chemistry was. I mean, she's phenomenal. Like the only thing the best thing you can kind of dream of, which is what I was so excited about my first film, like Scare Me was essentially a black box theater play. And I was so stoked after years of doing comedy, to get back to my acting roots and really act opposite another performer who is really listening, and kind of that thing of, it's like, oh God, actors just go on and on about like listening. What's that all about? And you try and kind of chase that a little bit, even in the comedy work that I'd done in the past, like, oh, I wonder if I can kind of find that. And Sarah is the epitome of that. And we're both sort of have similar sensibilities in that we just want to dive right in and take risks and try stuff and keep it interesting for one another and for each other, vary it up and not just, repeat it like, a broken record or dialogue or what have you. It was phenomenal to play an intimidator and to play like the bully, sort of dangerous side of Bruce, and watch her as Meredith react to that with every fiber of her being. Like that's how much of an incredible visceral listener she is. And then to be on the flip of that and to see her essentially playing a god was just so epic. I mean, she's a dream partner, a dream person to work with. I've been repeating this, but I just appreciated the fact that she what isn't the type of actor to have to like retreat to a corner and listen to sad music or anything. I really haven't worked with any actor like that, but I don't do many dramas. She just wanted to jump in, and that's how I like to do it too.
One of the things I really wanted to hit on today, you kind of just alluded to it, not working on a lot of dramas. It seems like, especially with indie filmmakers, people are finally starting to come around the fact that horror and comedy are really only separated by like a very thin shower curtain. A lot of the things that you have to pull out of yourself come from that same vein. So with your comedy background, how do you feel like that benefited you on a film like this?
Oh, just because we're boundary pushers and risk takers, and comedians are typically great observationalists. So we're ones to find some personality and skewer them through, say, mockery or mimic or other or other means. And that was what was so cool about playing Bruce, is it's like, the type of narcissistic bastard I'm so excited to rake over the coals, especially after like the past, several years of presidency and types of personalities and such, we're all so excited to skewer. I think that's what it is about these comedians in our field who've advanced in horror, Zach Kreger and Jordan Peele, even John Krasinski. There's just an observation of humanity that I think we live to do in a different way, in the way that we not only want to document it, but we've played it. We've actually embodied those types of characters and skewered them, held a mirror up to them, that kind of thing. Yeah, it's a fascinating subject. I love kind of digging into what it is about the parallels, and there's so much more to be said. But to that end, I think that's why us comics might be effective, filmmakers to that degree.
Absolutely.
Why the comedy's so important. Yeah.
And especially with your background, somebody that's broken their back to produce some of these shorts, and your work with Dropout, where they started with such a little bit, and they've really gotten popular, especially with Sam doing all the TikTok videos and all that.
It's crazy.
It's wild how many people are finding Dropout nowadays. But with those, you were originally forced to have this tiny budget, which it seems like it really leads to this massive amount of creativity. Can you share anything where on your sets you feel like, because you were so stuck with how little you could actually spend, it brought out an incredibly fascinating project? Because I feel like Werewolves Within is kind of like the definition of that to me.
Yeah, and thank you. Everything I've done has been that type of project,
right.
And it takes a very specific type of technician to figure out how to make that schedule work. I think my work, not only in like internet sketch comedy, where the first time you see the location, your location scout day is also your prep day and your shoot day. And you've got 4 hours. And if you have a celebrity, you got them for 10 minutes or whatever it is. So you learn so quickly how to just solve shit, just shoot it,
Right.
Werewolves was like the perfect culmination of all the shit that I'd learned, all the falling down and fucking up through years of doing college humor videos and shorts, and just kind of finding myself. It took me so long to even figure out technically what sort of, emotional effect lenses had. I kind of knew in my heart what certain visuals were, but I couldn't quite find and articulate it technically. That was such an example, a perfect, storm of my skill set amassed over years of doing commercials and sketch for how to get the thing in the can. And we somehow came in under time and under budget on that, after, having days slashed and, actor availability issues and all kinds of stuff, weather issues.
Right.
Same thing with Scare Me. I mean, we shot that, and I just learned, I thought it was 14 days. And my DP the other day was like, no, that was 12 days. We lost a lot of time because of blizzards. And I only had Aya for 9 days of those 12 days. So what that does is it forces you into a very kind of survival mode, creative mode situation, where you go, okay, if I had to sacrifice some kids and pick my favorites, it's more like picking your necessaries to get the thing in the can. Here's the few I'd pick to get it done. Like, as an example, on Werewolves, that whole hallway scene, after, spoiler alert, Pete gets his hand bitten off, and there are gunshots and there's complex choreography, and the hallway truly was that's a real hallway. That wasn't a set. There weren't flyaway walls or anything.
Right.
I just, we had 4 hours to do it, maybe even less. So I just said, we're going to shoot everything this way, all the back and forth. I'm side coaching all the actors. All right, stand back for the gun shit. Let's knock it out. Cool. Now we're going to do everything this way. I'm going to go in entirely on Michael's coverage. We're going to get all the squibs. Sam, get in here, squat down, turn back, just do all your lines like this. And then we're going to turn the camera this way and get Rebecca in the hallway. And that was it. And it was 3 takes each, and what I've learned from moving at that pace is not everybody's ready to move at that pace, especially if they come from the TV world where you got endless resources. So what I've learned, especially on that gig and everything I'm going to do from here on out, regardless of the budget, is if I'm going too fast, like let's have a safe word, or like at the beginning of the day, hey, you kind of give them the lowdown. The sun's going to go down as fast as, the Lord intended. So like, let's just check in with each other. Like today's going to go quickly. Here's what I need to get for the story. But if it's too fast for you, if there's anything you want to try, you got to say, like, grab me. Because when I work, I'm like a scrambled egg, I'm just like just popping off and trying to
it
get
seems
it done.
like improv is kind of the perfect fuel for that, because with that background, you have to be able to answer at the drop of a hat. And a lot of these people, they don't have that type of background. So maybe they don't have that in the toolbox.
Which is, you need actors who are just kind of ready. That's why that whole cast in particular, coming most of which from the improv world, from, who like had 15 roommates and did live theater and did all that thing, just like ready for anything. Why Aya Cash and Chris Red are ready for anything. That's how I was able to get those in the can. Folks with a theater background and improv background, they'll save your ass for sure.
Agreed. As you noticed when you first came on, this is a channel about physical media, as this is behind me. How does this feel that there are people across this world holding something you created? They can touch it. It lives on their shelf, and you are able to purchase something in a store that you made. How does that feel as a filmmaker?
It's insane. I actually but I want to say 2 weeks ago, I went to a place called Videotech here in California. It's in South Pasadena. It's a hard media store. They've got vinyls, they've got cassette tapes, they've got every Blu-ray, DVD, TV show and film you can possibly imagine. And they had not only Werewolves, but also Scare Me, and within 2 shelves of each other. And as a child of the 80s and the VHS era, and walking into the, the kind of vault-like chapel of our video stores. And I can remember all 4 of them throughout my childhood into adulthood, what they were, how they smelled, and the effect they had on me. It feels amazing. It's incredible. And I don't know what it is about today that hard media is. I mean, you would know more than I would. Hard media is coming back in such a big way. Oh, yeah. Not just vinyls, but also cassette tapes and Blu-rays and Ultra 4K, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know what it is or why it is. Maybe it's kind of an antithetical or a snapback response to how we've gone so opposite that way. We're looking for that tactile experience again. I'd like to think even like kids these days are discovering the magic of hard media in a weird way. Like I feel like even younger kids in the TikTok generation are going like, ooh, a cassette tape.
True.
I'm curious. I don't know. I'm curious from your perspective what your take is on that, just being a collector. But do you have a sense of like what that is and why that is?
There's a couple things. Some of the companies I've talked to, one is that during the pandemic, a lot of people had what we're kind of referring to as streaming fatigue, and whether it's stuff disappearing from these libraries or just I've looked at these 312,000 times and it's not the same, and they're hearkening back to, man, when I was a kid, I had this, a VHS of Aladdin that I played 49 times. When I stream this, I'm never going to watch it again, but when I hold it, it's that much more important. So possibly that side of things. But then on the other side of it, it is people genuinely that are, I hate this experience because there's so many things that are not respectful to the viewers or the filmmakers. Like if I were to stream Werewolves Within, the moment the credits are started, basically it's, let me recommend 4 other titles, and it's blaring in your face. You don't get to sit with that feeling of what just ended. It's it's
a buzzkill. It actually is. I mean, like I was watching, even wasn't Glass Onion because I had a DGA screener. There was some, I think they've been episode. Oh, it might even be White Lotus. Like, this hot new show on HBO is like so exciting. You want to sit with that music, and then suddenly HBO's like, credits, this, that, and the other thing. Or Dahmer. We were watching, Dahmer on Netflix. Yep. And as troubling as the show is, really, my wife and I really loved it. And you want to sit in the heft of that last moment. That's well said. And then you can't reach for the remote fast enough and figure out how to get the credit suggestion out of the way. And it's obnoxious. So you're totally, that's totally bang on. And I'm also finding, I don't know if this is adjacent. I think it is. Comic books. I'm rediscovering my love of comic books and graphic novels. It might have been a pandemic thing as well. And so I'm releasing a graphic novel next year that's kind of an homage to my love of Tales from the Crypt. It feels like it could be a tale out of
Wow.
Tales or a tale out of Stephen King's Derry. And I think it's simply because, I love having the thing in my hand, maybe as a result of, or that snap reaction to, let's get the phone out of the hand and get back to what it felt like reading this stuff as a kid.
Are there any certain films that you really relied on back in the old hard media days at the video store that you remember just going back to?
I mean, Darkman. Darkman,
Yes.
I think 1, 2, and 3. Honestly, all three of them. I rented all three of them. Darkman 1, I'd rent and rent and rent. I don't know why we didn't own it. I never owned it at any point. I can't tell you why, because I'd rent it again and again. I think there
Right.
was just a period, probably in elementary into junior high, where I'd rent it so often and then just kind of forgot about it. I mean, truly blackout forgot about it until a few years ago when I went like, I used to watch this horror superhero movie hundreds of times a year and put it
Yep.
away completely. Rebought it on Netflix or bought it for the first time, or sorry, on iTunes, and just discovered or rediscovered how rewatchable it is. The colors, the
Yeah.
action, the Raimi-esque kind of glory. That was super reliable to me. And then anything that looked like a great horror movie. But what's funny is that back then, in the late 90s and early 2000s, even as a high schooler, you'd kind of want to rent these like independent dramas. Like I remember
Yep.
going and wanting to rent like Nick Nolte's like Affliction and like The Ice Storm and the Death of a Salesman with Dustin Hoffman. Like I don't know what it
Yeah.
was. Maybe it's because I was like a bit of a theater kid and whatever, but I think it was just the thing of each movie, almost any movie, as long as you brought a few tapes home, just had this kind of holy effect where we'd all
Yeah.
gotta go, well, what are they? And all right, well, that's the event for tonight.
Exactly.
They wouldn't all be great, but it's like, what is this thing going to behold? With the sweet hereafter? I've never heard of it. All right, fuck it, put it in. It's like, oh, that's intense, but yeah, whatever. Until you start to get hip to the fact that as a kid, you're like, oh, that looks like there's old people in it. Well,
Right.
there's not enough blood on the back, or no one has a fucked up face, or there isn't an insert of machete or whatever.
Yeah, that's I think one of the things that is making this different for a lot of people is those we treated them as events, but nowadays if you're just streaming something on Netflix, a lot of it's just background noise. So
Yeah, yeah.
getting this physical media, it's something where it's intentional. You're making that move to actually have a relationship for the next 90 minutes with something that is important to you.
Yeah, that's well said. That's well said. I wonder if this era now is theater, the issue of driving to the theater is sort of becoming fragile,
Yeah,
and the state of the theater industry is becoming fragile. I wonder if there's going to be kind of a resurgence of hard media to the degree that it will kind of aid pre-existing films or the future of film, that will become only a way to sort of maybe supplement some of these losses,
that's
and
true.
that maybe people will drive back to the theaters or continue going back next year. Some of the theater chains will fail, but the standbys, I mean, my local Alamo here in Los Angeles, there's a lot of people there every weekend because it's a destination.
Yep.
The price is fine. It's still like a little cost prohibitive, but you see when they did $3 movie day
Oh yeah.
nationally few months ago, you couldn't see anything. You couldn't get in the door to see any movie. It didn't matter what it was, documentary, anime from the past, brand new flick, Black Adam, whatever the hell. So
That's I don't know if you ever go, but the New Bev in Hollywood, I was just there in June, and the amount of screenings of stuff that sell out within like 2 hours of tickets going live, you can tell
yeah,
because they have this reverence for it, and it's on the cheap side. It's not that bad at the New Bev. It
yeah.
is something that draws everybody.
I gotta go. I have to go. I criminally have not been. There's so many times my finger has hovered over the ticket button for things like, I mean, everything from Batman Returns to
Yep.
Suspiria and everything else. But I will. I think it's because it's like the parking. Where do you go? But there is a spot. They talk about it on the website. They're like, just go
Yeah.
up the street. Yeah, no, that's the kind of thing that excites me. I think there's another place called Brain Dead Studios, I want to say, here in LA with it. It's like an
Yep.
obscure movie theater. The boutique movie theaters will sell out. There was a Friday the 13th on 35 mil, part 3 on 35 mil, full on 3D, gave you the glasses and everything else, looked
Nice.
incredible. Brian Fuller was there and some of the original cast, and it was an event completely sold out. Like that stuff's really exciting, and I'd like to think that it's not just places like here in LA that if those types of events happened elsewhere in our country, that people would go, and I think they will. It's great to follow the mom and pop video stores. There's one even I'd like to shout out to Tinker Street Theater in Woodstock, New York. The management that's taken over Tinker Street Theater in our tiny town, our tiny theater, the curation is out of control, and
Nice.
I think they're selling out, pretty frequently. It's really incredible with that. Like they're showing Critters and Vampiros Lesbos and all then they'll show Elf and Batman, and it's just it's pretty rad.
A friend of mine who's also a comedian, he met you a couple months ago at Beyond Fest, I believe. He goes to the New Bev freaking church. Every single month they do. It's usually 4 or 5 films where it's an unknown horror marathon where you sign up and then they just play it for the next 9 hours, and it sounds incredible. So yeah,
Wow,
he's loved everyone he's gone to. I would recommend that.
That sounds incredible. Yeah, I'm gonna look that up. If there's a membership program or something, maybe that's what I should sign up for. God bless Quentin for doubling down on it.
Josh, I want to be respectful of your time. Thank you for coming on here today. This has been amazing. I'm so glad that you were able to break through with the Wounded Fawn and Werewolves Within and Scare Me and everything else. I can't wait to see what's next.
Thank you, Ryan. Me too. I hope I do my fans well. We'll see.
You're doing great, and can't wait for the next episode of Game Changer with you.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
Have a good afternoon.
All right, you too. Thanks for having me, man.